And I'm live. I'm after hitting savage traffic, and I'm in a much quieter van than before because my van died. RIP van. Served me well. Nearly 3 years. Many tens and tens of thousands of boxes of my produce it delivered, so owed me nothing. So I'm in a lovely Mercedes Sprinter now. Comfort that I'm not used to in the least. An absolute ball ache. I'm having to drive to Blanche to collect the van, do all the paperwork, put a 300 quid deposit on it, pay for the van, take me stuff, the kid's car seat or whatever out of the car, put it into the van, drive the van from Blanche then to my place of business, 50 miles away, load up the van, drive to Dublin, do a delivery, come home, go to bed, come home, load the van up, go to bed, drive to Dublin again with another delivery, drop the van back, take everything out of the van and put it back into the car and drive home. And I'm doing that, 2 or 3 times a week. It's a fucking nightmare. But the show must go on. I'm holding out on buying I'm actually decided on buying what's called a box body van, which is basically the biggest thing that you can buy, the biggest thing that you can drive on a car license. Anything bigger and I need a lorry license. And little did I know, the whole lorry license thing is a massive ball ache between passing the theory test and the actual test itself, which I believe is quite difficult. Anyway, minor thing. There's tachographs, you have to have certain rest periods, and there's just a whole world of shit that comes with having to drive a lorry, to the point that unless your occupation is lorry driver, I don't think it's really worth your while. I don't think it could be really worth your while. But anyway, I digress. As I said, hit a bit of traffic. I've been chatting away to myself without recording, as I usually do, and said I haven't done a real proper solo random one in a while. The last one was obviously the vasectomy one. For those of you interested, I have a pain in my bollocks this last week and a bit. The evening of the vasectomy, I had quite a pain in my bollocks, and the next 2 days I had quite the pain in my bollocks also, and then for the following week I think it's been fair to say that I've had a mild pain in my bollocks. But aside from that, it's grand, all's well. But yeah, what I was thinking about there as I was driving up was, I was coming through Navan and I actually saw a little boy and a little girl that were making their way to school, but what caught my eye was they were pretty much sprinting. They were running to catch a red light on the road so they could basically cross. And the little girl was struggling because the boy was obviously a little bit older and a little bit bigger, and just by virtue of her being a good bit smaller than him, she was struggling to keep up. And I don't know why, it made me think about, kids and exercising and all the rest of it. And like most things, we tend to view them from our own kind of selfish viewpoints. It's hard to do otherwise. But anyway, I started thinking about my own level of fitness, which is essentially non-existent these days. I put on fucking savage weight in the last 6 months, and not only have I don't think I've actually put on as much weight as I've lost muscle. And what happens when you lose muscle, you might have the same amount of fat, but it makes up a bigger percentage of your overall mass. So as your percentage of muscle that's on your body declines, by default the percentage of fat on your body increases. So I feel stodgy and just horrible. But look, it's just kind of part of the territory when you have a baby that doesn't sleep. But excuses aside, I've had to kind of look at everything that's wrong with my life at the minute. It's weird. This came about all from looking at the little boy and the little girl running, and me just not having the radio on and not having a podcast to listen to, and just being sick of listening to my own music. And by my own music, I mean the music that's on my Spotify account or whatever. But anyway, I digress. I just started kind of, I suppose, holding a little intervention for myself, and what came out in the wash was I'm smoking way too much weed, I'm drinking way too much alcohol, I'm drinking pretty much every day. They're not, massive, a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of bottles of wine. Now, once a week, that's a bottle of wine. And that didn't happen overnight. That just, that kind of creeps in on you. And even the amount of chocolate, like I'm pounding chocolate again, and in a bad way, because pounding chocolate's bad when you're out running every day and you're working out and you're competing and you're doing different things. Pounding chocolate is bad then, but when you're not really working out, when you're spending a lot of time sitting down, as I am, just doing by nature, just doing deliveries. I've hired a couple of people, so they're doing the kind of the donkey work that would have been kind of keeping me fit, and now I'm down to doing all the driving and all the office work, which isn't exactly, it doesn't require a lot of energy to do those things. Mental energy, granted, but not physical energy. I'm not burning up the calories that I'm fucking lurrying down myself. But anyway, saw the little boy and the little girl running along, and I just started thinking about kids' fitness generally, my own kids' fitness, my fitness. And I was thinking, I must actually start working out with Fionn, like my little fella's 4. And I was like, that'd be good. And as that thought came to mind, I think I got a picture in my mind's eye of dads working out with their kids on YouTube that I've seen. And it's kind of cool. You see lads, doing weights or doing whatever it is, calisthenics or bodyweight exercises or whatever it is. And the little kid is there, delighted to be with their dad, and kind of learning about work ethic and working out and the importance of fitness and how it can be enjoyable and all the rest of it. But then I kind of went, yeah, but that's not really me. Like, you don't want a 4-year-old anywhere near me when I'm working out. You really don't. Like, I'm I suppose I'm an intense enough person. I tend to be a bit of an extremist. I can't just have a podcast. No, I have to have 4-hour-long conversations. And I can't just have solo podcasts. No, I have to live record my fucking vasectomy. Or I can't just start a fucking business. No. I have to start a controlled growing room environment business and be the one of its kind and blah blah blah. I always kind of take things to a bit of an extreme, and I'm certainly like that when I work out. Like when I run or when I'm training, say. It's of an intensity that you don't need or want or require or should have a fucking small child around you. Because it's weird, I do and I don't want him to see that side of me. Because it's an intense side, and although he needs to know it exists, and he needs to know that it exists inside himself, and that it's important that he's aware of that and that he channels it, and that intensity doesn't come out when he's having a row with his missus when he's a little bit older. Because I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They don't have that channel, and it builds and it builds and it builds, and people get cornered and they lash out. I don't think anybody really, and I stand to be corrected, I obviously don't know, but I don't think anybody enters a relationship, whether it's a marriage or just a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or otherwise. I don't think anybody, man or woman, enters that relationship knowing that they're going to beat up their partner or that they're going to be violent towards their partner. I think most people assume that they won't be and kind of end up being. But anyway, the whole point of me talking about, possibly working out with my little 4-year-old not being such a good idea, what that made me think of was this idea of a trade-off. There's videos of loads of different dads, and they're working out with their kids, and they don't mind the kid interrupting their set, and it's all smiles, and it's all kind of very kid focused, and it's great. It's fantastic. But I just wondered, what's the trade-off? Because that's a gear I don't really have. Now, don't get me wrong, I can play with my kids and play with them all the time and love playing with them. And I would play with my kid via exercise, which I must do. But that would be me playing with my kid doing exercises. It wouldn't be my kid joining me in a workout as playtime, because I think I'm just too intense for that. It's for a fucking 4-year-old who idolizes me. I don't know. I'd be wearisome of the I don't know, the negative consequences or something. I don't know. It's a weird one. But anyway, this idea of trade-off. I wonder what the trade-off of those dads on YouTube are. Like if they can do their workout routine and have it interrupted and not get frustrated and all the rest of it and have a gay old time with their kid, and fair play to them. If they can do that, what can't they do? Because there's always kind of a trade-off. Or at least often there's a trade-off. And I was trying to think, if I can't do that, what are the things that I can do? And an example immediately sprung to mind. Every evening I bring my little fella to bed, and before he goes to bed he brushes his teeth and he goes to the toilet. It's this little ritual that we have, a little habit, and it's great. It's a little one-on-one time with me and the young lad, which is, you know, surprisingly rare, especially when you've another kid and it's a baby, and babies tend to be time sinks, basically. Everything, like, it kills me. I feel like I'm perpetually saying to my 4-year-olds, not now buddy, I'm changing Kiva, I'm feeding Kiva, I'm looking after Kiva. And look, if Fionn had an older brother or sister, it would have been the exact same. I'm sorry I can't play, I'm sorry I can't paint, I'm sorry I can't do this and that, but I'm doing this with Fionn. So every evening we have this little ritual. We brush our teeth, we go to the toilet, and then we go to bed. But once we've brushed our teeth and gone to the toilet, every evening, religiously, I'll say, okay, ready, set, and as soon as I say set, he's gone. He races off ahead and jumps into bed, because we have a little race from mine and ourselves en suite to his bedroom. Now, it's only, 12 feet. But, it's just one of those little things that a dad and a son does. Where am I going with this? I do something once a fortnight, which a lot of people don't generally understand, I don't think. And what that is I'll say, ready, set, go, I'm gone. And I leave him for dead. He's 4. It's a 12-foot race, and I'm jump starting. So he hasn't a fucking chance. Not a chance. 2.5 steps, I'm in his bed, going, hey, I won! And he's upset. He'll bawl his eyes out. He will fucking bawl his eyes out. Oh, Daddy, I was supposed to... It's not fair. Usual shit. And I do this, maybe it's not even, it's probably once a month. It's not every 2 weeks, it's probably once a month I do this. Now, sometimes more often, sometimes less often. I pick my moments. If he's not well, I don't do it. If he's been cranky for the last hour or two, or if he's overtired, I won't do it. I'll pick my moments, but I do it, and I do it as regularly as I can without, ruining his little life, And people look at me doing that and hear me talk about doing that and go, Jesus Christ, you're an awful wanker. Oh my God. But as far as I'm concerned, he has to learn. And the lesson is explicit. He gets all upset and starts crying and saying, oh, Daddy, I was supposed to win. And I go, yeah, well, you know what, buddy? Tough. Oh my God. Tough, lad. Like, dry your eyes. You're not going to win everything. You're going to lose. People are going to get the jump on you. Every so often, you're going to lose. That's just part of life. Get used to it. Because I'd sooner him bawl his eyes out with me and then kind of kiss and make up and have a little lesson and go to bed happy, than for him to have that experience in the playground now, or in 10 years time, or maybe in 30 years time when he's in an office and he's a manager. And I wonder, do those dads in the YouTube videos who can work out with their kids, I wonder, is that what they don't have? Or is that, broad sweeping generalizations galore here, but I wonder what the trade-off is. Because surely there is a trade-off. And I wonder, are there times when I'm maybe too strict? Maybe I take it too far. I don't think I do. Now, I stand to be corrected. Maybe doing what I'm doing there is inherently wrong in some way. And if it is, I'd love to know. I'm not intentionally being harsh on my kid for no benefit. I think that there's value in what I'm doing. And again, I pick my moments. But I try, I suppose. It's fair to say that I try. I try and be a good dad. I try and be a good partner. That's harder. The partner thing is harder. Because, why is it harder? I think it's harder because she's a full-grown adult, so she should fucking know better, kind of thing. With the kid, you kind of have to have infinite patience. But with an adult, it's a lot easier to go, "You're a fucking stupid bitch, Jesus fucking Christ, blah, 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 blah." You'll do that with an adult a lot quicker than you do with, a 4-year-old. And proper fucking order too. But there's always a bit of a trade-off. Like, look at herself and her parenting. There we go. Like, she would be excellent in certain ways and just fucking downright terrible in others. Like, the whole teaching Fiona lesson by beating him to whatever race it is or whatever. I wouldn't say she's incapable of doing it, but she's not fucking far off incapable of doing it. And, conversely, there are things that I don't have the patience for that she does. And parenting, I think, is very much a team activity. You can bring up kids by yourself, but I don't think you can do as good a job as you could with somebody else. And I think that's borne out by studies on single parents. Like, bearing in mind, my mum raised me and my brothers and sisters from when we were very young. My eldest up 6 fucked off and died when my youngest brother was 3, my other brother was 8, and my sister was 16. I would have been 13. And it's funny, I only realised recently that herself now is the same age that my mum was when her husband died and left her with a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. And how in the name of blue fuck that woman did what she did is just beyond me. It really is. Like, how anyone could do that is just beyond me. And not only to do it, but to do such a good job of it. I mean, my older sister is married with her own kid, with a great husband, a great job as a primary school teacher. My other brother, or my brother Aeron, who hasn't been on the show yet, he lives out in Qatar, out in the Middle East. He's teaching out there as well, earning big bucks over there. And then my younger brother, past guest and friend of the show, Pat, brains to burn, qualifications out the wazoo, and starting, his kind of career path now soon. And I've herself and the kids and the business and everything else, and things are good in our world. So how the fuck she managed to do that, I don't know. But I think it's fair to say she at least potentially would have been able to do a better job with a partner. Now, she mightn't have, and odds are she probably wouldn't have, because we lean on our partners as we should, but maybe we lean on them a little bit too much. And there's a weird one here, because myself and ourself do exactly this. We tend not to lean on each other. We almost, in a weird way, act as single parents. We're both extraordinarily independent people. But that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not an overtly bad thing, and we are absolutely a team. We don't. It's not as though we sleep in separate bedrooms and have separate lives or anything like that. No, nothing of the sort. But I think we are a little bit too independent of each other, and maybe that's just because we're not married yet. Maybe marriage will do that. But then again, I don't think it will, because marriage is just a label. I mean, we've been married for years, technically. Not technically, but like, what's the word? Not actually, but effectively, that's the word. We've effectively been married for practically 10 years. So, having a day out as such, I don't think too much is going to change, if anything. It might settle her slightly, because I think women are more vulnerable than men generally. And I think that when a man and a woman have kids and are in a long-term relationship, and they're, and they may as well be married, I think that's harder on the woman than it is on the man. Just by virtue that misogynistic sexist comment alert. Do women need support more than men? Do women need support the same way men need to be supportive? Is that how we gel? One side needs support, the other side needs to give support. Neither is preferable, neither is better. They just are. There's a provoking conversation for you. Now, apologies, I'm back on the road. That probably sounds weird when you're listening to it, but I pull into one of my drops, so I'm after unloading a couple of pallets. I was just thinking there when I was unloading the van and that, although I obviously have to drop this van back today, I will be buying a new van. Well, it'll be a new van to me, and hopefully won't be as loud as the last one. So, judging by the quality of the audio in this, it's not going to be perfect, but I'd imagine it's going to be a damn sight quieter than when I was recording that other piece of shit van. But yeah, it's gas. The kind of knock-on effect. So you have the baby, and you're not going to be sleeping. You have a baby and you're not going to be sleeping, so you're not going to be training as much. You have a baby, you're not going to be sleeping, you're not going to be training. You're probably going to start eating shite. You have a baby, you're not going to be sleeping, you're going to be training. You're not going to be training, you're going to be eating shite. And it just kind of snowballs from there. You're not going to be recording your podcast. So then you start kind of beating yourself up about, how I would, at least, and people like me will. I'd be very, 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 very self-critical. Holy shit, like, very self-critical. Herself is actually quite self-critical as well, and that can be kind of toxic, I suppose. We both have to be very kind of aware of that, aware of our own harshness on ourselves, and aware of each other's harshness on ourselves. We'd be very critical. So I would have, by not recording podcasts, I'm like, oh, I started this whole thing and now I'm not doing it, and not quite an anxiety attack, or sorry, not quite a panic attack, but almost like a mild anxiety attack. Speaking of anxiety, actually, I'm a big fan of a trio of Irish lads called Foil, Arms and Hog. FOILARMS and HOG. Foil, Arms and Hog. Check out those lads on YouTube. They've got fucking fantastic sketches. Really, really cool stuff. But there's one on anxiety, and it's a while since I've seen it, but I think it's a very good one in order for people to understand what anxiety is. Oh, that's what it is. It's actually a board game called Anxious. And it's almost like the sketch is an ad for this new board game, and the board game is Anxious. That's the name. It's called Anxious. And you get anxious points. So you roll the dice and you land on whatever you land on, and you turn the card over, and it's I'm making this up now as I go along, but the cops are behind you and you don't know the speed limit of this road that you're on. And you're like, oh! And that's anxiety. You're anxious when that happens. You're anxious. Or if you ever feel sick when you see flashing blue lights in your rearview mirror, that's anxiety. That's what that is. Or when you're going through airport security and you feel as though somebody's going to find a kilo of cocaine on you, even though you've never done drugs in your life, that's anxiety. And some people really suffer with that. So that feeling of the flashing blue lights in your rear view mirror, some people wake up with that, and that's not cool. Some people perpetually have flashing blue lights in the rear view mirror of their mind, and not in a good way. But in relation to what I was saying there earlier, but you're not sleeping, so you're not training, and if you're not training, you're probably not eating well, and blah blah blah. I've mentioned this before, this idea of the positive feedback loop, or in this case, a negative positive feedback loop. The more you put into something, the worse it kind of gets. It's almost like a fire. If a candle knocks over in your house, it might burn the cushion off your couch. But if your couch goes up, then your ceiling goes up. If your ceiling goes up, the floor of your upstairs goes up. If that goes up, everything goes up. The roof goes up and your house burns down. So that's it. Like when your house burns down in that manner, that's called a positive feedback loop. There's nothing particularly positive about it. So the way I would phrase it is as a negative positive feedback loop. Another, just a straight up positive feedback loop, or should I say a positive feedback loop, might be you start running and you start feeling healthier, and because you feel healthier, you fancy a salad more than a Mars bar, and that means that you can exercise more, and by exercising more you feel better, and you're in a better mood more often, so you're more in the humour to go running than you were. And the more you run, the more inclined you are not to eat the Mars bar, to eat the, meat and two veg or whatever it is. So that's a positive feedback loop. And I'm going to call it at that, because I've made several recordings like this that I haven't put live because I've stopped and started them. I didn't feel like they were worthy of being released. And again, this is just that self-criticalness of me, that's generally not a good thing. I tend to overthink things and not do them. So I'm going to wrap this up before I waffle too much. Hopefully this was me getting back on track with the solos. The conversations, I'm still mad keen to have them, and they're coming. As things settle down, which only time can aid, I'll be more inclined. The new van I'm actually looking to buy, the big box body van, I'm hoping will double as a mobile podcast studio. The cool thing about that is it puts more control on me. So typically up until this point, when I invite somebody on, or when they say that they want to come on, I go, right, well, when are you around? And we'll arrange for them to come over to my house. And I have to clear it with herself and whatever else, and make sure the kids are in bed and blah, blah, blah. And I'm relying on that person being able to come over and spend the time and then get home and all the rest of it. which has limited me to a degree on people locally, relatively speaking. So, like, I'm not going to ask somebody who lives in Dublin to drive all the way to Navan to meet me at 7 o'clock to have a 4-hour podcast that brings them to 11 o'clock and then have to drive all the way back to Dublin. But if I have like a mobile podcast studio type thing, it means that I can just drive to them. They can just step outside their front door. We can do it in their driveway. We can do it in a local car park, whatever. So what I love about the solos is it's not reliant on anybody else. I can just kind of do them. The conversations are harder, so that's why I'm going to rattle off a couple more solos more than likely before I get a conversation going. But trust me, it's coming. There's a lot more coming. And before I ramble too much, I'll chat to you soon. Before I let you go, I'd just like to remind everybody that this episode and all the episodes on YouTube have been brought to you by past guest and friend of the show, Pat McKeown. Pat is very similar to myself insofar as that he's long had an interest in the mind and more specifically the brain and how they both interact, to such an extent that he went and spent 4 years getting a degree in neuroscience and then spent a further year in getting a master's in psychology. Now what he's done is pretty fucking cool. He's after setting up his own YouTube channel. It's called Pat Psychology Masters and there's a link in the description. Now what he's done here is he's uploaded all the best bits that he's learned over the last 5 years and put them into short, plain English, easy to understand YouTube videos for the likes of myself. His YouTube channel has been a massive resource for me in understanding both my mind and the mind of others. So hit up Pat Psychology Masters YouTube channel, subscribe, give it a like and a comment and a share. All that kind of stuff helps, and I'll chat to you soon.